The Hodgeheg, Chapter 3. By now it was quite late. The rush hour was over, the shops were shut, and all was quiet. I'll wait, thought Max, and then when a car or lorry comes along, I'll cross in front of it. Soon he saw something coming. It was a lorry. He was halfway across when he suddenly realised the lorry hadn't slowed down at all and was almost on top of him, blinding him with its brilliant lights, deafening him with its thunderous roar. It was not going to stop. Lorries only stop for people, not hedgehogs. The lorry driver, who, until he was almost on the crossing, had been unaware of the tiny pedestrian, did the only possible thing. With no time to brake or swerve, he steered so to straddle the little animal. Looking back in his wing mirror, he saw that it was continuing on its way unhurt, and he grinned and drove on into the night. The sheer horror of this great monster passing above with its huge wheels on either side of him threw Max into a blind panic, and he made for the end of the crossing as fast as his little legs would carry him. He didn't see the cyclist silently pedalling along close to the curb, and the cyclist didn't see him until the last moment. Feverishly, the man twisted the handlebars, and the front wheel of his bicycle suddenly wrenched round. It caught Max on the rump and catapulted him headfirst into the face of the curbstone. The next thing that Max recalled was crawling painfully under his own front gate. Somehow, he'd managed to come back over the zebra crossing. He'd known nothing of the concern of the cyclist, who dismounted, peered at what looked like a small dead hedgehog, sighed and pedalled away sadly. He remembered nothing of his journey home, wobbling dazed along the now deserted pavement, guided only by his sense of smell. All he knew was that he had an awful headache. The family crowded round him on his return, all talking at once. "Where have you been all this time?" asked Ma. "Are you all right, son?" asked Pa. "Did you cross the road?" they both said. And Peony, Pansy and Petunia echoed, "Did you? Did you? Did you?" For a while, Max did not reply. His thoughts were muddled. And when he did speak, his words were muddled too. "I got a head on the bump," he said slowly. The family looked at one another. "Something bopped me on the hit'em," said Max. "And then I headed my bang. My ache bad's headly." "But did you cross the road?" cried his sisters. "Yes," said Max wearily. "I hound where the humans cross over, but the traffic only stops if you're human," interrupted Pa. "Yes," said Max, "not if you're a hodgeheg." Chapter 4. "Do you suppose he'll be all right?" said Ma anxiously. It was dawn, and they were about to retire for the day. The children were already asleep in a thick bed of fallen leaves. "I should hope so," said Pa. "Hodgeheg indeed. His brains are scrambled." Max slept around the clock and halfway round again. He did not stir till the evening of the following day. The shock sent him into a sort of early hibernation. When at last he woke, his sisters rushed to nuzzle at his nose. That's the safest nuzzling place for a hedgehog. They had squeaks of concern, and his parents left their snail hunting and came trotting. "How are you feeling, dear?" asked Ma. Max considered this. His headache was almost gone, and he was thinking straight, but his speech, he found, would still not behave properly. "I'm a bit bitter, thanks," he said. "You had a nasty knock," said Pa. "You need rest," said Ma. "Why not get back to bed? We'll bring you some nice slugs." "I don't want to bed in to get," said Max. "I feel quite wide awake now. In fact, I feel like walking for a go." Pa took a moment to work this one out, and then he said, "No, you're not going anywhere, son. Do you hear me? Stay at home in the garden for a while. Get your strength back, understand?" "Yes, Pa," said Max. "I'll say what you do." And he did do what Pa said, for a week or more. Peony, Pansy and Petunia fussed over their brother. They bought him the fattest, slimiest slugs they could find, and they encouraged him to play their favourite game, hide and seek. However, it didn't work. When they hid, Max forgot to go and look for them. And when it was his turn, he forgot to go and hide. So busy was he thinking about the business of road crossing. The girls would count to 30 with their eyes shut, and when they opened them, Max would still be sitting there thinking. Striped bits were no good. He didn't want to try that again, but maybe, he thought, maybe there was another way. His determination to find out was increased when Pa came back early one morning from a visit to the park with more bad news. Max overheard him telling Ma. "Another one gone," Pa said. "Not a relation," said Ma fearfully. "No," said Pa, "the chap from number 9A up the road. I didn't know him well, you understand, but he always seemed a decent sort of hog. He was crossing in front of me not 10 minutes ago. He misjudged it and a motorbike got him. He leaves a wife and 6 kids behind." That evening, Max waited till he was sure Pa was out the way in the garden of number 5B. The people at 5A always put out bread and milk for Max's family, but the people in 5B gave something much better to their hedgehogs, tinned dog food. Every evening, Pa crept up through the hedge to see if he could nick a saucer full of munchy meat before the neighbour woke up. "Ma," said Max, "I'm walking for a go." Ma was quick at translating by now. "Did Pa say you could go?" she said. "No," said Max. "But he couldn't say I didn't." And before Max could do anything, he trotted off along the garden path. "Oh, Max," called Ma, "are you sure you'll be all right?" "Yes, of course," said Max. "I'll be quite KO." Once outside the garden gate, he turned left and set off up the road in the opposite direction to his previous effort. By now, he was used to the noise and the brightness and confident that he was safe from traffic as long as he didn't step down into the road. When a human passed, he stood still. Creatures didn't notice you, he found, if you didn't move. He trotted on, past the garden of 9A with its window and its 6 kids, until the row of houses ended and a high factory wall began. So high, he wouldn't have been able to read the notice on it beside the factory entrance. Speed 5 miles per hour, it said. Max kept going, a good deal slower than that. And then suddenly, once again, not far ahead, he saw what he was seeking. There were people crossing the street. This time, they didn't go in 1s and 2s at random. They waited all together. And then, at some signal he supposed, they crossed at the same time. Max drew nearer till he could hear a high beep, 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 beep noise, at the sound of which all the traffic stopped and the people walked safely over. Creeping closer still, tight up against the wall, he finally reached the crossing place, and now he could see the new magic method. A bunch of humans stood and watched, and just above their heads, a picture of a little red man was standing still. The people stood still. Then suddenly, the little red man disappeared, and underneath there was a picture of a little green man walking, swinging his arms. Then the people walked, swinging their arms, while the high beep, 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 beep noise warned the traffic not to move. Max sat and watched for a long time, fascinated by the red man and the green man. He rather wished they could have been a red hedgehog and a green hedgehog, but that was not important. As long as hedgehogs could cross safely here, that was all he had to prove, and the sooner the better. He edged forwards until he was just behind the waiting humans, and he watched tensely for the little green man to walk.